Hey man, how's it going?
Oh, not too bad. I was just at the Calgary Expo yesterday with you. Had lots of
Yeah,
fun.
was a lot of fun.
Um,
Yeah, a
Everything's
lot of
so
fun
so
stuff
much
there.
more expensive than it needs to be.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, none of the voice actors for Futurama were there. Like that one year,
Not
I
this
think that was
year.
probably
Yeah,
our favorite year. That we got to see Maurice LaMarche, Billy West. Was
yeah.
John DiMaggio there?
No, DiMaggio wasn't. He was there another year.
Right.
But no, it wasn't
The
that year that
voice
you're
of
thinking of because they also had the
Yakko.
panels.
What's his
Yeah.
name?
Um,
Ron
Paul,
Paulson or
Ron,
Paul
Ron,
Ronson? I don't remember
Ron
now.
Paul's,
Ron Paulson. Okay.
Ron Paulson. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, a lot of good things there. It's unfortunate that this year though the panels weren't really good. But yeah, welcome back everybody to Bite My Shiny Metal Cast, episode 5 of season 5. Kif Gets Knocked Up a Notch. So why don't we just jump into the episode here? Opening caption. Oh, and please like and subscribe if you enjoy talking things Futurama. Let's talk. Yeah, opening caption. Bigfoot's choice, right? Like you're a fan. You're a fan of this one, right? Like the Bigfoot idea, the
Oh
Sasquatch,
yeah.
all these fun things.
Oh
Who
yeah.
wouldn't be? It's a
It's
big,
it's
big
it's
thing.
really out there. Like
Big
well,
thing
we
here in
we live
Western
very
Canada.
close. Yeah, we live
Yeah.
very close to the Rocky Mountains, and there's evidence everywhere. The
Yep.
deeper you go, the more likely you'll see and never return.
Yeah. And I think Bigfoot actually shows up in Futurama, if I'm not mistaken, right? There's an episode
I
with
I
the
think we'll
park
see it
ranger.
later
That's the
this
Spanish fry,
season.
right?
Yeah,
When he
yes,
loses
Spanish
his
Fry.
nose. Yeah. He loses his nose. It's later in this season, I think. So, yeah, well, we'll actually see Bigfoot, I'm sure. So we open up on the Planet Express and the headquarters area, and we have Amy surf in on her. I think they call this, what is it called? This thing, the party board, right?
Party board.
It's like a hoverboard or whatever. Just kind of surfs in, and she's clearly come from some kind of activity thing, and she talks about it and all that kind of stuff. Everybody's doing their own work,
I do
and
love when she comes in though, because
yeah,
she flies in it through a doorway, which is
the
like
door. She comes off of it. She
that's gotta
falls
be
off.
yeah. She's very graceful like a ballerina, and as soon as she steps off, poof, up
Yeah.
on her face because
She does
she's a
that
dick.
twice. Yeah, she's a bit ditzy. So anyway, she's told by Leela that Kif has called her, right? Because of course they've been dating for quite a while now. So Kif is always on his own expeditions with Zap Brannigan due to being in the military.
Oop.
So they don't get to see him for dupe. They don't get to see each other very often. So he's called her. However, it turns out that he didn't call and leave a message or anything. He's actually still on the line. He has been for like 2 hours. So Amy asks him, like she goes and sees him, says hi, all this stuff. Like, why did you not just leave a message? It turns out that Bender is their answering machine and no one ever checks Bender. So it was kind of moot. So Kif wanted to stay online to make sure he could see her due to the fact that Kif has been, missing her a lot, right? He's very emotional and all this kind of stuff, which we know about Kif. He's very much like that, which she likes about him. Right? They have that really strong connection with their emotions. So, as they're talking about, like, oh, I wish we could see you and all this kind of stuff, we have Zap Brannigan kind of walk by. And as soon as he looks through the camera, obviously it's a video call because we're in the future. Mind you, we do have it in the present now, but that was
It's
in
not
years
quite
in the
the same
future.
thing. I think that's kind of like the main way of connecting in
Yeah.
Futurama. There's a lot of video calls. You don't really ever see them on a phone call, except
No,
for no, even then, like it's still like an actual receiver, like the old receiver, but it's just connected to a video
that's
camera.
right. The only time I can remember, like right off the top of my head, is actually a Kif and Amy episode when Kif is going to tell her. I think it's Amazon Women in the Mood, and it
Yeah.
makes the joke about the tiny cell phones or whatever. That's the only time I remember where it wasn't like a video call, because obviously then she would know who was calling her, right? So that's the only
Well,
time
I'm
I can
pretty sure
remember that.
video phone calls have been around for a long, long, long time. It's just they haven't been widely used till COVID.
Present day, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, any case, Zap sees that Leela is in the background of where Amy is as well, so he starts trying to talk to her. Leela gets upset at him. Obviously, she has this huge animosity towards Zap Brannigan, so she throws a book that she's reading. What is this book? I think you had checked out this book or something.
Greatest machete battles.
Greatest Machete Battles. There you go.
Yeah,
So Leela's
'cause
always reading a book or something.
Yeah,
But
she's usually reading a book about like the most courageous like Worm or something like that. Like it's always about some animal being brave or something like that. A little tiny animal being brave. And this is
right.
the first time we've seen like a machete battle. So
something that she's actually trying to like read about killing something. So in any case, she throws that book at the screen, breaks the screen, thus ending the call. So Amy's a little disappointed. However, the professor comes in and says like, okay, I need my crew. You guys are going to go deliver. I think they have, they're dropping off pain medicine or something to Nigel 7, which is of course going to, I think he said something about like a hive monster or like a hive-minded monster or something hive mind.
Yeah.
And it's on this planet. Yeah. So.
But the pill is giant, so it's like, is it for each individual, like each of those little individual balls inside the like the giant pill capsule? Is that for each hive person, or is it just a big giant thing they all glom up into one big giant hive thing?
I think it's a specific creature that is like, it controls things with a hive mind, I think is what the idea is. And it has a headache or something, so they need to bring this pill to cure his headache or something. However, I do like it's also Scruffy that wheels it in. Like they're using Scruffy a lot more in the episodes now. We actually get to see him part of the crew, part of the group, so that's kind of fun to see him. But it turns out that Nigel 7 happens to also be where Zap and Kif are stationed, or very close to there.
Close by.
Yeah, so Amy asks, oh, could you drop me off because I would love to do this, and the
professor.
We could,
but we won't.
Yeah, Professor freaks out for whatever reason. He says like, "No, we're not going to do this. Like, this is a business, not like a prom limousine company or whatever." But at the end, he says something along the lines of like, "I'm going to be in the angry dome." This is funny because like the professor just has this all. Like he just jumps out at random times and just says random things. He's a senile old man. So he always has these little moments. But in any case, Amy's left sad because obviously we're left to believe that she's not going to be able to go with them. And last we see of the crew, they've taken this pill and they leave in the ship. And then we see the professor in said angry dome on top of the Planet Express headquarters. I guess this is next to like the little tower. Yeah, it's like next to the dome or whatever. So that's pretty funny. In any case, as they're flying, Leela tells the group, like the trio, right, or the other two, I guess, there's only the three of them, that they need to go into some kind of hibernation, which basically means just going to sleep because this is going to be a long trip, despite the fact that last episode we had them fly to the ends of the universe in like within a week, but whatever, continuity and all that. In any case, turns out they're just going to have a nap.
How close are they to the one edge and how close are they to the other edge of the universe?
Sure, I suppose. Sure, okay. I mean, it's not all relative, I suppose.
Yeah, they're not exactly in the exact middle of the universe, as much as we Earthlings love to believe we are.
Love to think about it, but
we are kind of technically right now, just because we don't know anything else about the universe, other than there's stuff out there.
Exactly. But yes, they fly off. Maybe that's the case. Maybe they're going the opposite direction. We also have to know what is the edge of the universe where they can see the parallel. The parallel.
So we know roughly about three edges of it. Though is it like an actual like square, triangle, or more than that kind of thing? So
is it a hexagon? Is exactly. Are there multiple edges of the universe? Oh my god!
Well, if it's a circle, like an omelet kind of thing, right? There's technically no side edge or something like that because
there's no edge.
I'm sure if you ask some mathematician who loves shapes, there's like a polygon, something like that, right? Which has like a million edges or something like that, right?
Sure.
And we at least know 3, as you've proven. We know where Dogdo 8 or 7 is, because Dogdo 8 doesn't exist. And what was the planet that they're going for in this one?
Nigel 7.
Yeah, which is the edge of 1.
It's not. Yeah, well, it's closer to. But we don't know if that's the edge of the universe.
Oh, yeah, I guess that's true.
I just said that it was like it took them only a week to get to the edge of the universe, right? So Nigel 7 may not actually be at the end of the universe. But
true.
But
you're right. We know 2 edges. We know 2 edges then.
We know at least 2 edges because the other side also happens to have the parallel universe thing, and there's only 2. We know there's only one parallel universe, so they're just the 2 that connect, which is also not true. But I digress.
Well, there's multi-parallel, and then there's parallel.
Right. So the 3 of them kind of go into their own little form of napping, right? So Bender shuts off. Fry goes to his little hammock in Bender's and his like. I don't know why Bender didn't go with him because they sleep in the same room.
They've shown that they are in the same room multiple times.
Bender has the above hammock, right, the upper hammock, and Fry has the lower one. So Fry's in there. Leela, I think you had talked about this with me beforehand, like Leela's cabin.
She has like an actual room with like a nice clean bed.
Yeah.
And like a desk.
Yeah, we've seen it before in the one where they got Nibbler. Right.
The second or third episode. Oh no.
Yeah.
Third or fourth episode.
Yeah. Something like the sword, right? So we don't see it very often, but yeah, she has like an actual nice room. So like the captain's quarters or whatever. She actually has a pretty nice room. And yeah, so she goes to sleep there. Now, in the cargo bay, we see the pill being left against the wall there. And wouldn't you know it, it breaks open and out steps Amy. Amy has stowed away on the Planet Express ship, and she's going to hijack the Planet Express ship in order to go and see Kif. Now, very romantic, I suppose, for all this stuff. So she takes the ship and flies off. Now, meanwhile, we go over and we see that Kif and Zap are like watching TV or something, some old cartoon or whatever, an allusion to it because Fox owns it or whatever. And it turns out that, Kif sees, or an alarm goes off and they find out that the Planet Express ship is coming to them. So Kif is happy about it because he believes that Amy's on there, and Zap is happy. Zap is happy because the only person who ever captains the ship is Leela, so he wants to be there with her. And wouldn't you know it, as soon as they get in there, Zap, we can add this to the pile of, other allegations against Zap Brannigan for Zap gets canceled.
No, I don't think there's anything wrong that way about this. It's just not polite.
He breaks into the ship. He breaks into her room while she's sleeping and lies down next to her. I'm pretty sure there's some issues here.
That's just odd. It's not nice, but it's just odd. But she does punch. She assaults him with her fist.
But she's in her right to do so. If he was going to
be charged for something, it'd be charged by breaking and entering, not doing anything else. That would be about it.
But that's all we know, right? Who knows what else he did while she was sleeping, right? Yeah. But in any case, in her right to do so, she does hit him off the bed, which is pretty funny. However, in a much more kind interaction, we have Kif and Amy in Kif's quarters. Now, Kif sleeps in, we've seen it before as well. I think in the episode we mentioned with, what is that episode? Where he's trying to tell, Amazon Women in the Mood. And he has like all these pictures of Amy and now him all around his little cabin. It's like a tiny little room, like a closet size thing. But it turns out he also has like a private bathroom, which we're going to allude to later in the episode.
It's a little creepy in my mind that he has all these pictures of her and stuff like that. Like, especially before, like in the Amazon one where he has all the pictures. It's a little creepy.
They're not together yet?
Yeah. How I Met Your Mother had a great kind of episode about this. It's like, if they find it sweet and cute kind of thing, that's a good thing. However, they can find it super creepy and inappropriate, which is like a Dahmer effect, like, like the serial killer. I can't remember what they said, Dahmer or something, but it all depends on how the person reacts to you. Because, like, you could do the biggest gesture to the world to a girl that you have a crush on, as example for men, and she can go, "Oh, that's so cute," or she goes, "Why the hell would you buy a quartet of musicians and sing me a song? We're in high school. Where'd you get the money?" So
exactly, yeah.
It all depends on how the person.
It all depends on the reaction, but it turns out Amy's okay with it, I guess, or she doesn't really talk about it. But
you see her in a future episode be like kind of really flirty with bad boys kind of thing in the Comedy Central run.
Yeah.
So
That's true. So Amy has a few different quirks as well, but I don't think that really bothers her in this regard because it's Kif's place, right? It's his home, which he does mention to her. Exactly.
I don't think she knows that he had all that stuff before. So
that's true. He probably didn't. Who knows? Any case, the conversation leads to them discussing the fact that, like, they miss each other, and because he's always working and he's always far away, they never get to see each other. So he decides to ask her to move in with him. Now, of course, she comes from, like, the Wong family, very rich family and all this kind of stuff. She has her own apartment and all this kind of stuff, lots of room. Kif, however, works and lives on the Nimbus, on the ship, so that's his home. So she thinks, and she says to him, like, it might be a little too crowded for us. And, Kif tries to make light of it by climbing on the ceiling, which we've also seen him do in Amazon Women in the Mood. But
like a tree frog.
Yeah, exactly, because he's an amphibian type of thing, right? So before she kind of rejects him, he says, "Wait, before you say anything, let me show you something. I want to show you what we could do, where we could live in the future if we ever got the chance to do so." And he brings her to somewhere I don't think we've seen this in the show before. It was called the Hollow Shed, which is basically an homage to Star Trek Hollow Deck, right? So they go inside, and Kif says, like, this is where we do these things for, like, relaxing, all this stuff. It's completely harmless, except if, holograms come to life, which Amy says, like, that probably won't happen, foreshadowing something might happen. So the two of them are in there, and Kif sets off a few of his little, images or whatever that he's programmed by hand into the Hollow Shed to show her. I think what was the first one is a mountain cottage, right?
Yep.
with with a horse that she never got, but she always wanted, despite the fact that she had thousands of other horses. Yeah, Spirit. And the next one is like a little island paradise thing, right, on the coast, which is a beautiful little jungle thing or whatever, with a beautiful moon that Kif tries to grab and give to her because he says he's going to give her the moon, that kind of romantic gesture. And for whatever reason, despite it being a hollow shed or like a hologram thing, you can touch the moon. So maybe this is kind of like alluding to the idea that the hollow shed is starting to malfunction a little bit because you can actually touch stuff, and he almost drowns in the water despite being an amphibian. But in any case,
yeah, well, it's one of those futuristic things, it's all simulated and stuff like that. The Orville had a pretty good idea behind like this, there was one where it malfunctioned and kind of became alive for an episode because it got a virus. But
you're right. I think so. There's this. It's a sci-fi trope, I suppose. There's so many. Mind you, the Orville is very, very much heavily inspired by Star Trek, right?
Oh, so 100%.
That is one of the things, right? So in any case, Kif falls off like the little cliff hologram, whatever that they're in, and falls into the water, and then he gets number 3, which I believe is just a castle in the sky. Right, just some castle there sitting in the clouds or whatever. I think I've looked at this before. I didn't really relook at it, but like in the Comedy Central run, I think there is an episode, right? Leela and the Jeanstock. This episode has Mom have like some kind of laboratory or something that's in the sky, and it's like a castle as well for some reason because it's supposed to be like a fantasy thing, a fantasy parody. Mm-hmm. However, I think you've mentioned before, right, that even though it is a castle, right, a castle in the sky or something, it's probably also just the fact that it's just a castle in the sky.
Well, I just Googled this
I
think it's a Studio Ghibli movie. It's called Castle in the Sky, and it's an actual movie from like the 1980s kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So it's at least from Japan. I don't know if it's Studio Ghibli, but directed by Miyazaki. Yeah, so it is Studio Ghibli. And but I'm guessing that was some kind of like reference to another thing. Obviously, it's Castle in the Sky, above the clouds kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like a beautiful thing, right? Well, just because I know Leela and the Jeanstock is basically just because it's like Jack and the Beanstalk, the castle like where the giant lives in the sky, right?
Clouds,
like that's in the clouds. So I know that's the case, but then this one just happens to be, but it's so much further or so much earlier than that episode that it's kind of weird that they're so similar together. But it's like near the end of the Comedy Central run, that episode. So any case, it's something that I just, as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, that reminds me of that. That's funny. I didn't realize it was so similar. So any case, at the time when they're sitting in the castle and she's showing him around, or he's showing her around and everything. And she says to him, like, listen, these are all great and all this stuff, and I'd love to move in with you, but there's some things I need to do alone first. Hinting that, she's still very much independent. She still wants to have a fun life and all this stuff. She still parties, right? She has her party board. She has like all these plans and all this stuff, which we kind of see later. So she says no. Now, as she says no, an alarm starts going crazy and something starts to happen, and we get a bunch of these crazy villains show up because the hollow shed is malfunctioning. Wouldn't you know it? So who do we have in here? Attila the Hun, riding on Spirit, and a very like vampiric demonic spirit, like her horse thing. So something's corrupted it. Moriarty from Sherlock Holmes, James Moriarty, Jack the Ripper from the Whitechapel Murders, and
scary one.
Yeah, and Evil Lincoln.
Love it.
Who we have never seen before, but he claims that he's back. Right? We've never seen Evil Lincoln before, right?
I do say this too whenever I do something mischievous to my dad, like I don't know,
Evil Mitchell is back.
Pull an ear hair or something like that, and just Evil Mitchell is back as I run away.
But we've never seen Lincoln before.
Like
this Lincoln.
Like, we've never seen Evil Lincoln. We've seen Lincoln lots of times because we saw him in like the Head Museum. I think we've seen him in other
asylum.
The Forefathers discount for cars kind of thing.
Right.
Four Scores, I gave a big discount.
Right.
So
this time actually 400 log cabins. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I don't think we have that one yet, do we? I think that's coming up.
Yeah, of course. That's the Insane in the Mainframe.
Oh yes. Well, we've done that one. Sorry. But all the Lincolns have been played by Billy West. This evil Lincoln is played by Maurice LaMarche, though, so that's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. So the two of them freak out, right? Kif and Leela freak out. They run to the bridge to go and get help and tell Zap and the rest of them that the hollow shed has malfunctioned. So, as they do, I'll call them the four villains or whatever, they run in. Now, Zap is, the captain of the ship, and he doesn't seem to think things through very much, but he also doesn't seem to show any fear, so that's good. I guess they've dealt with this before.
He's too stupid to show fear.
Yeah. So he takes his gun, and I do like this little exchange between he and Attila the Hun, because Attila the Hun is like, from an ancient time, even compared to us. And he starts saying things like, don't use fire stick in, like, space canoe. But then he says, like, something very scientific, like, have internal combustion or something like this. So anyway, Zap, like, sets him aside or whatever. He says, like, whatever, Attila the Hun, and shoots a hole through the ship, thus sucking the air out of the bridge and making all of the villains, including Evil Lincoln, despite the fact in the future, all push in and they all fly out into space.
They get sucked down into space.
Yeah.
Yeah, this little bit here of animation bothers me just because it's very quick. Like you got all five of them doing a rotation, whether it's like a somersault forward or they're rotating. It's just, they're all like quick drawings and stuff like that, but it just looks so awkward to me.
Sure.
Did you need more drawings to make it smoother?
Is it easier for people to draw rolling sideways or somersaults?
Sideways, like standing up and like twirling would be the best way. Because if you're going head over thing, you got to do perspective for the face and head, and faces are very hard to get right. Mind you, it's a cartoon, but like you still got to draw them in perspective because they want some sort of like realism. Because that was one of the issues that Disney had when he was trying to make a full length feature. Because back then it was kind of hosey animation, if that makes sense. Everything was like a rubber hose stuff. Yeah, it didn't quite work for the elegance they were trying to get for Snow White. And then that's when they came up with their system of rules at the time, or at least that they had it. They hadn't named it yet. But it was like the 12 rules of animation and stuff like that. Gotcha. And so, rotations are harder to do with faces doing different perspective and stuff like that. Just turning around, like when you're standing up, much easier.
It's a bit easier for that, sure.
Frontal
that's
face.
How most of them,
three-quarter face, side face,
fly out of the ship, right?
Yeah. A few of them actually, the horse in particular does a somersault, and horses suck at drawing because their forelegs are just the weirdest thing because they look like they have extra bones. They don't. They have the same amount of bones as you and I do in our arm to hand, but just that they only have one finger. That one finger is very weirdly positioned, designed. I guess.
Sure.
Yeah, we'll say design. Yeah.
So, as the villains all get sucked out of the ship and everything, we have the crew, right? So Zap and Kif and the rest of them, they're all on the ship and they're being also sucked out, obviously. So Leela grabs on, to which then Fry grabs onto her, Bender grabs onto him, and Zap grabs onto Bender, and the four of them are being pulled out through the sucked hole. Then we have on the other side Amy and Kif, who are a little bit ahead of them. Amy's desperately trying to hold on to Kif, but unfortunately slips, pulling off his glove. Kif is trying to clamber to, kind of grab her or whatever else he has. He grabs onto Leela, then he grabs onto Fry, because he's slipping, grabs onto Bender, tries to grab onto Zap, but he ends up flying past. And then, wouldn't you know it, that moon that he was going to give to Amy also malfunctioned enough that it was physical, and it rolls into the bridge and blocks the hole perfectly, thus saving them. Yeah.
Is the moon evil? Because it seemed to be only the evil things were able to get out of the
malfunction things.
Yeah.
No. That's what I was trying to figure out, because I think that whole line about him giving her the moon and the moon is like that small feels like it was used in place for this. It's like, how are we going to have them like get out of this situation? It's like, have that moon that was touched and all this stuff, and it can just roll in and block the hole. But I don't think it's anything like that. I think it's literally just everything that was touched or everything that was like moving in the past. So Kif touching it made it physically come into being or something, come into reality. I don't know.
Maybe
it's a weird sciencey thing that's not really sciencey. So any case, they're saved and they end up going to the ship Doctor, which is definitely an homage to the original Star Trek Doctor Bones McCoy, like even the voice and everything. And he's checking up on all of them and saying like, it seems everybody's okay, a few broken bones, a few hemorrhages, whatever, not a big deal, but everybody
partially
seems to be
barked up lung.
Right, or heart or something, whatever it was. But it seems to be everybody, at least the main crew, the main group of our characters were all perfectly fine. Only thing though, the Doctor announces, Kif's pregnant, to which everybody is, what? Including Kif himself. So, this
it does a weird
thing.
hold on him there. And I think I figured out what it is. So I think what they did there, because right after that, when he does the, and then everyone reacts to it, the camera cuts out the people, but then it goes back to him, and he goes back into another pose. So I don't think that was originally planned. Now that I've watched this a couple times, and like I'm always like, oh, that scene bothers me.
Okay.
So I think they stopped the animation because that was an in between drawing or something like that, and then they're like, oh, we forgot to add the reactions to everyone else, so let's cut that right there and then add the reactions. Because this was probably happened post animation, I'm guessing. Like, and this is all the editing kind of thing. Like the director's like, oh, so he's really weird because like no one else says anything, so he just goes and hugs Amy. Well, let's add reactions. Oh, okay, so just call back the crew, do a quick little like kind of thing,
update
and
thing
then
or whatever.
Yeah, an update kind of
quick draw of his face, like right.
Yeah, it happens all the time. Not all, like, it's a major thing that people I've had to do. Like, oh crap, we need to. It doesn't make sense. This doesn't flow properly, kind of thing. How, on example, Tom and Jerry. Tom does this to Jerry, but how does he get close to Jerry with a thing? Because he had to go across the room, so we got to add a scene 12A kind of thing, right?
Right.
In order to get 13 to make sense.
Right, which tells us what happened in between there, right? To have our minds make the connection.
I think that's what happened there. Unlike the last episode with Leela, just holding a pose, I don't think that was the same mistake.
That was probably just an issue. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it was probably like, we ran out of money, or animator Jerry died, and no one else can do it anymore in time.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. As an example.
For sure. So we find this out, though, because Kif is indeed a male, and for most things, I mean, amphibians have a different thing. So, of course, he's like this amphibian type of alien species or whatever. But due to, like like a seahorse as well can do this. So, for his species, if they are creating or have created a deep connection with somebody, like a romantic connection, then they have the ability to pass genetic material back between each other. And that's basically how their species procreates. So Amy, when hearing this, doesn't seem very happy about it, despite Kif being overjoyed about it. But later, wouldn't you know, it's Fry who says, like, oh, wait a minute, didn't all of us kind of touch Kif? And so that kind of makes Amy a little bit more happy because maybe she's not the parent of it, despite the fact, like all this stuff happened because she was grabbing him and Leela grabbed him and all this kind of stuff. So, we also get like, this is where it's kind of strange. This is where we see Evil Lincoln show up again. Indeed. But then he's like gone again from the scene. So that's just a joke, I guess. Whatever. So, in any case, they're like, yeah, we should probably do a test to figure out who the parent is to Kif's, like, offspring. Okay. And, of course, where do they go to do this? Back at the Planet Express crew, or Planet Express HQ, because who else has made anything ever, but except for the
He's
the
an
professor.
inventor.
He's the inventor of, like, the entire universe. So.
Well, that's not true.
What? Oh, of course.
We saw the inventor, marathon, or Inventor Con or whatever.
The Inventor Con. And in the future, we also have the Da Vinci Code, which also has like the entire planet of inventors, right?
Yeah.
And Da Vinci himself. So, any case, they go to the Planet Express headquarters, and the professor already has a machine, which he's like mocking himself apparently, or he mocked himself apparently about making said machine that basically is able to figure out parentage between two different species. It's basically like one of those rides at a theme park where like spins really quickly in the middle. It's not a carousel, but like something in the middle. I can't remember what it's called. Some kind of spinning thing. Yeah.
Picture like a flat bowl with sides, and like you're on the you're leaned up against the sides, and because of centrifugal force spin so fast, you're kind of stuck on the edges there.
Right. I
can't remember what it's called. I should have looked it up.
Yeah.
But yeah, it spins
exactly
around.
What that is. Right?
I do have a thought though. Weren't they just on a delivery that the professor was kind of a little mad about, and then like he's back here and like no one has said like you didn't complete the delivery, guys? Like what's going on?
So
Hermes isn't here either.
I have a feeling he forgot.
Or
and they also broke the delivery, right? Like Amy popped out of the thing and broke the capsule, right? So they have nothing to deliver anymore anyway. But you're right.
You know what?
That never gets resolved. Yeah.
Here's a good idea for the next season episodes and stuff like that. Not that they're probably already written out and animated and everything, but all the deliveries that they failed come back with a lawsuit or for vengeance or something, right? Like a group of angry people come back and try and destroy Planet Express with the bureaucracy legalese, and that's a Hermes Central episode where he has to out bureaucracy the other bureaucracy or person. And
bureaucrats. Yeah, he has to out-bureaucrat the bureaucrats.
Thank you. Yeah.
The thing is, I like that idea actually, because that would give a lot of callbacks and maybe like, oh, do you remember this episode? Do you remember this episode for like the longtime fans? The problem is that takes a lot of research for people who are writing the show, and they clearly don't want to do it anymore.
Well, the new writers do. Yeah.
The new writers don't.
The old writers are like, I already lived it. I don't need to care. I want my paycheck. I'll do a good job, but not as good as I used to.
So yeah, but I do like the idea. That's a good idea. So in any case. They put all 4 of the organic people, into the machine. So leaving out, of course, Bender, because, he's a robot, and Kif, obviously, because Kif is there.
Fry, and Zap.
Zap, right, that we see, right? So Professor turns on the machine, and he has set it up that basically if you are not the parent of Kif's children or whatever, it will spit you out, okay? The Force will just kick you out or whatever, and then he has like a little mattress against the wall so that if they fly out, they're not gonna get smacked into the wall or something. So he turns on the machine, they start spinning like you would, and of course the first thing that it does is spit out Fry. So obviously we know Fry is not one of the parents. He hits the mattress and falls. Yeah. Right afterwards we have Zap Brannigan kicked out.
Oh, thank God.
There was a joke earlier, I forgot to mention, but there's a joke earlier because of course we had mentioned that Kif has a private bathroom. But the only other person who uses that bathroom that Kif didn't know about was Zap. So he was afraid that maybe
away from homes.
Yeah, he took some of Zap's genetic material. So he's relieved when Zap gets shot out second after Fry. Following that, okay, you know what? I'm just remembering this now. I'm just noticing this now. So the third person who gets shot out is Zoidberg. And it turns out because he's living there. But isn't it weird? He was not on that delivery. He's never touched Kif, yet he's the third person, so he has the genetic material close enough to Kif's offspring.
You know what? I'd have to check for how they all started in there. Maybe it was just doing it in numerical order or whatever. Like the one closest to section 1 or whatever got shot out first, which was Fry, Leela. Oh no, sorry, Fry, Zap, and then Zoidberg, which is happening to be in the next slot or something like that. I don't know. What are you doing here? I live here.
So, in any case, that's kind of a funny little joke. Zoidberg's doesn't show up much in this episode, but the few lines that he has are pretty funny. Now, the fourth person after this to shoot out is Amy. So it turns out that the one left over is actually the parent, and it's Leela. So it turned out it must have happened, as Kif points out later when they were having a conversation about it, that when he had his glove missing and he had just his bare hand, Leela had actually grabbed his hand to try and hold him from getting pulled into space. So this means that it's not Amy's children necessarily, but Leela's. Now, Kif says that's fine, but it turns out that in his culture, in his life, it's not about what genetic material you get. It's about the person that made you become like this in the first place, that made you want to receive genetic material in the first place. So he says thank you to Leela, but overall to him, Amy is the parent. Okay. And we get a confirmation of another term that they use quite a bit in the Futurama universe, and we've actually heard this before, but now it's actually kind of used proper, is the term smizmar, which is
smizmar.
Yeah, Kif's universal word, or Kif's species universal word for their relationship. Mind you, we do find out in the future, what does it mean? The literal translation is one who does not sleep with my commanding officer.
Yeah,
that is the literal translation.
Yeah, we'll say that's the amphibiosian version of it.
Right, exactly. So later, Leela and Amy are having a drink and all this stuff. Leela apologizes to Amy for getting her boyfriend pregnant, and Amy's like, yeah, whatever, things happen. And they talk about they're going to have a baby shower for Kif and all this kind of stuff. And Amy has this holographic watch that has all these things. Now, did you catch some of the items that are kind of on? Because she has every single day, because Amy's clearly wanting to be, she's young and she still wants to do things. Did you get a catch of all these things on her watch?
And there's a couple good things in there. Apparently she makes new friends with this person named Molly, we never see. And so she goes to lunch with Molly. And the next day she trashes Molly with Tina. And then the next day she trashes Tina with Molly again.
Right.
So, and then there's a little note here that that Tina and Molly are slang for drugs known as crystal meth and ecstasy. So
yeah, Tina. So Leela's a partier, Amy's a partier. So
there's also weird thing to like hang out with Walter Conning. So it's just why?
Just something in there. Yep. Yeah. Point is, I think they just needed a whole bunch of little jokey things for her to do because everything in that calendar needed to be taken, right?
She's also cutesy tootsie though, so there's one that says adopt all puppies.
Right, exactly. So, isn't there also one about like her moving her fluffy one, like her cuddly bear or something?
Oh yeah, rearrange the teddy bears and then promote Mr. Fluffy.
Right. So,
that could be maybe a callback to that Love and Robot episode where they go and do that the delivery for that corporation that has those little
romantic
corp.
Bears. Yeah, right.
Yeah, romantic corp.
Yeah, with the lovey-dovey
What a good
bears
word! I love that romantic corp.
Romantic corp and what is it? The lovey-dovey bears or something where they don't make them by hand; they genetically engineer them because it's cheaper. Than they hunt them. Oh man! So, didn't we also have a conspiracy about that, or like a theory about that, with like the lovey-dovey bears are kind of the descendants of like what the future of the Kif overlord or something, or like because they're super cute or whatever. Yeah. Any case, I'm sure that'll never get resolved, but it's kind of a funny.
Oh god, no. Are you joking? That's too good of an idea that works well within the Futurama universe for the idiots that write the new stuff.
Yeah, I know. So, in any case, Amy puts on Kif's baby shower onto her little watch hologram, which we see, and she says, okay, I guess I might as well set it to motherhood. So she clicks it on there, and every single day gets erased and replaced with motherhood. And Leela sees that she looks a little sad about this, so they cheers and all this stuff, and make a cheers to motherhood in general. So we cut over to the baby shower, okay?
Baby shower,
which is happening at
Fry's and Bender's place of all places. Yeah, They want to have it at Amy's apartment. I don't think we've seen her apartment at this point, have we?
Not yet, as far as I can remember.
I think the first time we see it is in the Comedy Central.
Comedy Central run, and Kif is living with her.
Yeah, but the cat episode where she's late to do her presentation that she could have done 10 years prior.
That's right. Yeah. So no, we haven't seen any of those things. So maybe Fry and Bender just wanted to host. Maybe they just had more room because they have less furniture. Who knows? It doesn't matter. They just bring everybody over.
The setting design. They already had
They've already created it. That's true. Yeah. That's true. So they had invited everybody over, and including Amy's parents. Obviously, they make an announcement, and somebody who wasn't invited, which was Zoidberg. So they're having like canapes and nice things, and everybody's they start giving out some gifts. So Bender gives a gift to them, which is his like little bronzed feet when he was a kid, and
they are bronzed.
Makes a joke about them already being bronzed and they're made of bronze. And then Leela gives them her old picnic basket that she was dropped off in as a baby to the orphanarium, which is kind of a nice callback to that, which they can also use for picnics if they decide to. And the last thing before kind of the end of the party, Amy's parents give Amy specifically a long present, which she opens thinking it's a new party board, but it's actually an ironing board. So they've converted it.
Party board.
Yeah, they converted her former party board into a ironing board because, she's going to have a whole bunch of responsibility. Now, Kif is over excited. He's like super happy about all these things, and he does this little, I don't even know what to call it, like a monologue about all these kinds of things. And just as he speaks longer and longer, Amy is just looking worse and worse. Freaking out. But at the end of the whole thing, Amy she's done. She freaks out. She says, I can't do this. And she runs out of the apartment, leaving everybody dumbfounded and sad.
Weird run cycle too.
It is a little bit, isn't it? But I think the weirdest thing about that scene is like we're left on the scene. It's silent up until there's a little crying noise, which sounds like a baby, giving you the idea that maybe Kif had the baby right then and there. But it turns out to be Zoidberg, who's just crying.
Yeah, that was a weird one. Yeah. We never see that again.
Nope, he never makes that noise again. But it's just kind of a funny little gimmick, I guess. So we come back and Kif is heartbroken that Amy's left him and all this kind of stuff. But as he starts to explain, I don't know what I'm going to do without her, his body starts to wiggle, and it seems that his body's starting to go into labor. So he has to return to his home planet in order to give birth. Now, the trio, as well as Zap, which is, kudos to Zap for, being somewhat of a friend to him when it counts. They all go and they take Kif to his planet, which is Amphibios 9, I think it is. And as they land there, Kif tries to make the trip alone, but unfortunately he's kind of a wimp, so he can't really get past the first bit of brush. So Leela carries him and the 3 others just cut through the vines to try and get him to where he was born in the first place, which happens to be the little swamp area with all the water. Now, they get there, and as they arrive, a character that we actually see a few times, I think in this one, she's called the Grand Midwife. She has multiple jobs, but she's like another amphibiosin, but she's a larger woman. Tress MacNeille, if I'm not mistaken, right? She basically plays all of them. Yep. She comes over.
Any older lady is played by Tress MacNeille, yeah.
Yeah. She comes over and she says, okay, like, welcome to here. I'm the Grand Midwife. Where's, like, all this stuff? Like, where's your Smizmar? Kif says that she's not with him. And, she kind of shames him a little bit, but realizes, like, oh, that's probably hurting your feelings, so I'll stop, but I'm not going to change my ceremony just for you. Kif says, fine, whatever. So she makes him do a couple of these things to try and get the ceremony prepared as it is done in his culture. And the last thing he has to do is take some of this tea, says the name of his Smizmar, and then drink the tea. As he does, he says Amy, and he's about to drink, but then, wouldn't you know it, out of nowhere, we hear Kif, right? We hear Amy scream Kif, and she comes zooming in on her hoverboard, the ironing board converted hoverboard or party board or whatever, right into the swamp, and she says, listen, I'm not ready to be a parent, but I'm not going to let you do this alone. I'm going to be here with you for this. So Kif is, overjoyed for it, and they share their tea. However, wouldn't you know it, he starts right then and there, going right into labor. So he falls back, pushes out a bunch of these tadpoles, right? And they start hopping away, and they're going towards the swamp water, because this is where they're going to go. So the key of this is that the Smizmar, who is not giving birth, is supposed to defend the young enough from the wild creatures that all live there, snakes, birds, insects, all this stuff, and make them try and get as many of them into the water. And luckily for her, she actually does. She gets all of them. For the 100 that pop out, all of them are able to get into the water. So she defends her young, so to speak. So they all swim into the water, all free, and Kif and Amy look on to see them all get in there. And Kif says to her, well, in 20 years, they'll sprout legs and they'll come on land, and that's when we can start being parents. Amy says like that's probably when she'll probably be comfortable enough to start being a parent anyway. And the last scene we have...
life cycle is like,
weird one
the males give birth to tadpoles, they have to go to the specific thing. 20 years later, they can become kind of, I don't know what, adolescents.
So they must have their kids quite young. Yeah, unless they live for a long time, which possibly could be the case as well.
At some point in their adult life, they turn into a swarm of J hookworms or something like that. So it's like
hook flies, sorry.
Hook flies or something like that. Yeah.
That's true.
So it's just a very odd. I'm pretty sure they could probably add a middle thing there. Yeah, right before we turn into the J things. Although we do see it in the movie. The one guy is playing himself as a. Oh, what's that Scottish bagpipe?
Oh, yeah, like a bagpipe,
but then it explodes into
it. Into the hook flies. That's right.
There can't be a middle between.
Nothing in between. That's right. Yeah. So yeah, they have the tadpoles. Then they become like, as we know in the future, they become like the kid things, and then they grow into their adult size, and then they become that later. But yeah, the last scene we have is, of course, the tadpoles all swimming in the swamp water, and we're left with one, who we actually see in the future as well as a kid, with one eye. Thus confirming that Leela was indeed the genetic parent.
Part of it, at least.
Give it,
because I have a question about this. Even though I think they've explained it in a different episode, a future one, probably even the one with the kids from 20 years from this one. Is it someone that has to touch hands? Like, is that where they exchange DNA, or can anyone grab him anywhere with their skin?
I think it was anywhere somebody could have done it, as long as it was open. But that just so happened to be, because I think he says like no, he says something about like in his health class when he was a kid or something for his plan. He says, no glove, no love, right? So if you're going to date a girl, make sure you're wearing your gloves because then you could accidentally pass on genetic material.
So it's basically through the hands. Okay.
Because that's the most common place you would not.
Well, okay. Well, then I have a thing that another question is, can his species take more than one DNA sample?
No.
Because Amy grabbed him by his face.
Yeah.
Which is skin to skin contact. And then right after that, Leela. Yeah,
grabbed his hand.
Grabbed his hand. So there's two people touching skin to skin, and the whole thing is that they have to feel that love too, right? So is it during any time or anywhere?
So I think that's kind of the whole point of the episode was to say like only one person can pass genetic material. Hence why then the machine wouldn't have any business, right? You would have Leela, Amy, and Zap all being in that machine, right? If they had multiple genetic things. So I think it's only one person. So I think it's kind of like for humans, right? One sperm will enter the egg kind of thing, and then it's closed off. Like even if you do it multiple times with multiple different people, only one could be in there at the time.
So
only
it's not
one
like
could fertilize.
Twins, where we can have one part of everything making a Schwarzenegger, and then all the bad parts go to
No, Mitchell, it's not like Twins from 1980.
It's
whatever.
like Twins. It's exactly like Twins.
Any case, that's Kif Gets Knocked Up a Notch, and I think you and I enjoy this episode. Like, there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot of fun things. I enjoy.
It's not the best one. It's a good one.
No, not the best one, obviously, but I think it's enjoyable. I enjoy the idea of Kif's species, right? Like the more we learn about Kif's species and all this kind of stuff. Like I love the idea of, one of the parents will, give birth to it and the other one has to defend their young to let them jump into the swamp. I really like that idea. I think that's a really cool idea. I am a little confused then if you don't have multiple, if two species, right? So clearly Kif's species is very malleable, very adaptable. They can procreate with many, many other species as long as they have that membrane or whatever. I'm curious, if you have two amphibiosins together, do both of them get pregnant? Or does one of them get pregnant? And in which case, is it always the males?
I'm going to go with like seahorses.
That it's always the males?
Again, I'd have to find that specific episode that explains the reproduction cycle and I think it is that episode for the Hulu run, like the third episode or whatever, with the bog children, whatever it is. I'm pretty sure they explain it, but maybe they don't explain that part because it was just Kif, who's an amphibiousin, and then Amy, who's human or Martian or whatever you want to call it.
Oh yeah, I guess she's technically Martian, isn't she? Yeah, but she's the species human, right? Yeah. Because we talked about this because we're technically Earthling, but we're humans, right? Yeah. So okay, fair enough. What would you say then your MVP and your favorite?
It's gotta be Amy, right?
Favorite scene, all that fun stuff. Amy, yeah, I would agree with you. Yep, Amy would be my.
Zap had a couple good lines and stuff like that, like when Kif had just said, "Oh yeah, and I have a private toilet that only I use," and then you hear a flush, and then you get Zap coming out. It's like, by the way, Kif, your flush seems to be set to stun, not to kill. So they even have that
toilets.
low flow toilets in the future, which is like I'm pretty sure we'd have advanced by then, but whatever.
And they're in a ship, right? Like they're flying through space. So you think they could just shoot out, but no, that is pretty funny.
There's another one too. Like right after all, like the hollow shed tumbled out, and they the moon got in the way of the hole, and Zap goes, "Oh, that was that was a lot right there. I need to go and relax with the hollow shed." So I'll be in the hollow shed. Yeah,
for sure. I also thought the professor had some really good lines. Mind you, it's only like one or two of them, but I love his like, "I'll be in the angry dome." Like I love his little thing there. And then you see him in the angry
patrol
dome.
there. You could drop me off. We could, but we won't.
It's a business, damn it, not a prom limousine. Yeah.
Ooh.
And then even a couple of Zoidberg's lines like, "Oh, I lived there," and your friend Zoidberg.
Yeah.
So
check it out. We invited everyone of your friends here, and also Zoidberg.
Yeah. No, I think this episode's great. And yes, as we've kind of just been talking about, like this does follow into 20 years later, they actually do make a follow up to this episode in general and actually bring the kids out. And when we get to that episode, we'll talk more about it, obviously. But it's just, it's fine. Right, the episode is fine, but I wouldn't say it's anywhere as good as this episode. Right, this one is definitely more structured and the style is better.
They forgot how to write Leela in that episode because she was like a drunk or something like that at the entire time.
Oh, we can also make mention of so Leela's parents, right, or Amy's parents rather. They were at the party or whatever.
Oh yeah, they're at the party. They were so happy. They were so happy.
So happy, and they're not like that in the future.
No,
so that's kind of a funny
thing.
They're
disgusted by their grandkids.
You call her grandma now. Yeah. So that's pretty good. In any case, no, I think we're both set on Amy being our MVP. Yeah, like Kif's up there, but I think Amy just has a better story to tell in this one, so fair enough. In any case, anything more to say about Kif Gets Knocked Up a Notch?
It was a good episode, B-, C+ kind of thing. It was good, but not that good.
Yeah, 7 out of 10 probably, I guess. Like it's a solid Futurama episode. Nothing extensive, nothing crazy breaking or anything, but and there's some fun things there. But cool. Well, if there's nothing more to say then for this episode, I guess we'll finish up here and we'll catch everybody next time for episode 6 of season 5, Less Than Hero. I think one of my favorite ones of the season, but there's a lot of strong ones of the season, but I really enjoy this one. And we'll talk to you then. So thanks, Mitchell. Have a good one. And see you later.
Oh yeah, you too. Toodaloo.
Toodaloo.